I'm Stephen Monteith, and I'm here to recommend Star Trek cartoons. There have been 9 Star Trek series over the past 5.5 decades. 10 if you count the short treks, which are sort of an anthology series that don't really belong to any one Star Trek series. And two of the main series, at least, were animated. And like all Star Trek series, though, they're very different from each other. The first animated series is from 1973. It's known now as Star Trek the Animated Series, but at the time it was simply called Star Trek. Kind of like how the original series was simply known as Star Trek, but now we know it as Star Trek the Original Series. Star Trek the Animated Series ran for 2 seasons, a total of 22 episodes. A lot of people like to think of it as the final 2 years of the original series' 5-year mission. It has most of the original series cast returning to voice their roles, except for Walter Koenig. Didn't return as Chekhov. It's a long story. He was replaced by a 3-armed, 3-legged alien named Erix. And they also added in another original character who is a cat-like alien named Maris. If they ever make a 4th Star Trek movie in the Kelvin timeline, then I hope they use both of them, because they're pretty good characters. I mean, they're a little underdeveloped, but that's because, the series didn't go on long enough for them to be developed. The animated series was more comedic than the original series was, which makes sense given that it aired with Saturday morning cartoons. But it wasn't really a comedy series. It was still Star Trek. It was still, strange new worlds, new life, new civilizations. But it was more lighthearted than the original series. There were much fewer deaths on the show, for example. And some of the plots were a lot goofier, including a sequel to the original series episode, The Trouble with Tribbles. The thing about the animated series, Star Trek has always been seen as space opera. It's science fiction, and it's set in space. But just like Star Wars is seen as fantasy set in space, Star Trek the Animated Series is like a fairy tale series set in space. It has a lot of fantastic elements to it, a lot of magic manifesting as science fiction. And there was a little bit of that in the original series too. It's actually a lot more like, if watching it feels like watching Doctor Who. It's nominally science fiction, but it's basically magic set in space. So it's a good series. It's a good family series. Probably the most family-friendly Star Trek that's out there. So I recommend watching it. I also recommend Star Trek Lower Decks. It's only 5 episodes long at this point, but it's already one of my favorite of the new Trek series. It's based off, the ideas comes from an episode of the final series of Star Trek Next Generation, also called Lower Decks, in that it focuses on the junior officers, the grunts on a starship, instead of the captain and their senior officers. Although we do get plenty of the captain and the senior officers in Lower Decks as well. it deconstructs a lot of Star Trek tropes, like establishing relationships with alien species, or how horrifying life can actually be for members of Starfleet. Aside from all the redshirt deaths that we already know about. For anyone who's watched Star Trek for any appreciable length of time and who has no problems with parodies poking fun at the franchise, it's loaded with references that just get funnier and funnier each time they show up. I've watched, like I say, it's only a few episodes long at this point, but I've watched them repeatedly now, and it just doesn't get old for me. It's the general humor of the show is far more irreverent, let's say, than standard Star Trek. There's a lot of violence and sexual references. The swearing is actually toned down compared to Discovery or even Star Trek Picard. But it's not exactly family friendly, is what I'm saying. But it is very well put together. The animation, the characters, even the music is pretty epic. Both of these series are available on CBS All Access. If you have that, you can watch both series all the way through. Like I say, it won't take you very long to get through all of them, but if you're looking for something to supplement your Star Trek fix, these are two good choices. That's all for today. Star Trek Month continues tomorrow on my Stephen Talks podcast. I'll be talking about representation in Star Trek through the ages, through the last 5.5 decades. On Thursday, I'll be talking more about the humorous side of Star Trek, including more about Lower Decks and other parodies aimed at the franchise, from within and from without. Stephen Talks is available on all podcast platforms, or you can listen on my website. You can also read my original fiction, available on all ebook platforms. The links will be available in the description. And be sure to check out my other videos on here. I've recommended a lot of movies and TV shows, and even rewritten a few of them if you'd like to watch. Be sure to rate and review anything that you read, watch, or listen to. Thank you for listening. Live long and prosper.